TV.
Thank you so much for joining us here on An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade. We're going to learn so much today about our brains because, of course, we're talking about Brain Canada today, a really innovative organization in our community. And our very first guest, of course, is the one and only Dr. Julia Fata. Hello, doctor. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Sam.
I'm so excited to learn from you today because I think you've got a lot to share today. Tell us exactly what you do in your role at the Ottawa Hospital.
It's such a pleasure to be here. So I'm a neurologist at the Ottawa Hospital, and I'm specializing in the care of people with multiple sclerosis and other similar diseases where the immune system attacks the nervous system. Wow. I'm also assistant professor of neurology at the University of Ottawa, so I cover two roles, both really exciting and most new to me.
Wow, good for you. So take me back in time, because we're talking obviously Brain Canada today is our focus, but I want to know how you came to be a researcher, a neurologist. Like, take me back in time. When did you make these big decisions in your life?
Great. It's kind of a long story, though. I'll try to keep it short. Yeah. I'm originally from Italy, and I'm from an island in Italy called Sardinia, where there is an impressively high frequency of multiple sclerosis for a reason we cannot explain up to now. And multiple sclerosis starts in an age between their 20s and 30s. So people I was taking care of as a resident there were people of my age. They were suddenly getting affected by this disease that can affect their ability to see, walk, talk. So I was really much impressed. And at the time, the research in MS was starting to grow and starting to develop new therapies that really changed the course of the disease. So it was a very exciting field to work on. And I kind of wanted to be part of that progress. Yeah. I wanted to be part of that research. Sardinia is not a big place, it's a small island, so there were not many opportunities to do research there, but they kind of recognized that limitation. So all residents were given the opportunity to do 1 year abroad. And I got the chance to come to one of the best neuroimmunologists in the world and was here in Canada. I came for 1 year, I did research with him, it was at McGill University. And then he offered me a position to continue, and here I am.
And here you are. And I love that story so much. So you saw something happening really in your own country, and now you're here in Canada doing incredible research. So you really have an affinity for something very specific. I mean, MS, for those that don't know what MS is, talk to us a little bit about what MS is.
Yeah, so unfortunately, probably many people listening to us today know what MS is because it's a fairly common condition among Canadians. Again, it's a disease where the immune system mistakenly attacks the central nervous system. And it tends to do so in young individuals. So again, between the age of 20, 30, people start to experience attacks of neurological symptoms that can be inability to see, inability to walk, inability to speak full sentences. And then thankfully, these attacks resolve to a certain extent over time. But they might leave some form of residual deficit that can affect their function in the long term. Thankfully, research has come a very long way while I was doing it. Not all thanks to me, of course, very marginally thanks to me. But we're now become very, very good in preventing such attacks. So the moment we can make an early diagnosis, we can really change the course of multiple sclerosis. And even in my short experience as a neurologist, I can see how the field has changed in the last 10 to 15 years. Wow. Incredibly. The patients that I used to see in my early training, thankfully I don't see them much anymore. That kind of deficits, that kind of problems have resolved. But then new issues came up, and that's where my research came in.
Yes. So let's talk about your research. So your research, I mean, let's just put it on the table. Part of your research was possible because of Brain Canada.
Absolutely.
Can we say that much? Because I think it's really important to give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm a new researcher. I just started my position in 2023, and I was so fortunate to receive funding from Brain Canada right at the beginning. And I think that funding people at these early stages is so critical. First of all, for two reasons. as we are new to the field, we bring new ideas, right? And these are bold, these are kind of risky also. They don't have such background, so they're harder to found. And also it's really hard for us new researchers to compete with seniors because they have such a long track record of successes, and we're really not equal comparison. So Brain Canada recognized this sort of opportunity, not only to change people's careers, but to change and progress the field. So I'm really, really grateful for that.
And they've referred to you as a future leader, right? So I think you're probably leading the way right now. But to get that kind of funding, do you remember finding out that this funding was going to be a reality?
It was so unbelievable. I still remember the day I was still new. I started my job a couple of months. I have met most of the people 2 times. I was already hugging everyone in the corridor and saying, it happened, it happened, they believed in me. It was very good. And you know, when you start, you're starting to build your team, you're starting to launch your lab, there's so many things you need support and so many uncertainties that probably not getting funded at all in the first few years is a reason why many people then steers away from research and abandon the field. Has become very difficult to stay in, but getting the kind of trust, support is incredibly helpful.
So a couple of words you've used, you know, they believed in me. They believed in me. And you believe that the research is going to make a difference in someone's life. So we'll talk about the word believe, and I want to talk about the word trust, because they've put trust in you, but then you turn around and people are putting trust in you as well, right? So believe and trust are key here.
Yes, and I'm so impressed by the way patients participate in research, and they give their time, and they really want to be part of that process. They really want to contribute. I used to do research in children with multiple sclerosis. Thankfully, multiple sclerosis is rare in that population, but we learn so much studying the disease in children. And it was impressive how kids participate in research, and their families donate their time, and they travel all the way to make sure that their kids contributed to this work. So, yes.
Somebody said to me once that research is treatment tomorrow. And that really has stuck with me, because I think when you're asked to do a clinical trial or you're asked to participate in any kind of research, that really is a commitment on behalf of the patient and their family. But you really could be changing someone's life, and even you mentioned a minute ago how it's changed in 10 or 15 years, how it's really, you know, obviously increased in terms of the type of treatments that are offered. So talk to me a little bit about that kind of bedside opportunity.
Yes, and we always try to make it clear to our patients when we talk about contributing to research that the benefits might not be immediate, might not be for themselves right away, but it's just to help the field progress. They might benefit themselves even in the future, but for sure the whole field will benefit. And the way we treat patients with MS now, it's really much thanks to people who participated in research 20 years ago.
And I think about Brain Canada, and I think about all of the really dedicated donors and team at Brain Canada that works really hard so that you can have these resources. Do you think of them often in your time?
Oh, so much. I'm so grateful. Also because it has been more and more difficult to get funded by the regular sources. The pie is getting smaller, and the people asking for a slice is more and more. So these generous people that contribute to these funding opportunities are really making a difference at the moment.
And what does your family think? You know, I think about, you know, living on this small island and seeing the challenge, and you've gone into the, you know, to the big world, and you're here in Canada, and you're having this opportunity to study and research in this way. Your family must be incredibly proud.
They're proud. They always try to make the case that they would have been proud of me anyway. Right? Even if I decided to do nothing of this, if I dropped university, they were just proud of the person I am. But when I told them I was coming here, I said, can we get a link of this this video? They're really happy.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. And when you think about the bedside, and I know even today, you know, you're heading to the bedside to consult with patients, that combination of research and bedside. I've spoken to many doctors over the years. I'd love your perspective on this. That really they learn so much at the bedside. The lab is one thing, but bedside is completely different, but really enhances and enriches their research.
Yes, and part of my research has been away from the bedside, and I miss it so much. I think it contributes in two ways. The first, it keeps you motivated.
Right.
You see where the issue is, you see the unmet need that needs to be filled. Mm-hmm. And so it keeps you motivated to find ways to solve those problems. Mm-hmm. And the second, you learn a lot from the disease, things that us as a scientific community discuss and maybe something, but then you really need to listen to your patients, and they bring up new things that you think at the beginning maybe doesn't have a good explanation, but you hear once, twice, and say, hey, let's investigate that further. Maybe they're telling us something that we didn't know at all about this condition.
Really is fascinating. We're going to have an opportunity to come back and chat with you a bit more. But what would you say to maybe a family that has been asked to participate in research and maybe they're a little bit nervous to do that, Dr. Fada?
It's fair to be nervous, but at this moment in history, people is very well protected when they participate in research. Everything we offer to patients has been validated by an ethics committee, and we make sure that there's no harm, undue harm related to research. Of course, there are always a little bit of risk. There are always discussed up front. And there's also kind of opportunities. You're closer to your healthcare team, so you have closer follow-ups, and if you want to be followed closer, maybe participating in research is also an opportunity for you. But then I totally understand also people who think they don't have the time. There's no judgment there, but always super grateful for those who do and decide to donate their time, the most important thing for research.
For sure, the gift of time.
Yeah.
So it comes down to those two words we talked about, believe and trust. So they believe in you and you believe in the research and the work that your team is doing. And of course, that trust is really important as well. We have so much to talk about. We're going to meet another researcher a little bit later as well and learn all about the work that he's doing. But we're going to come back in a few minutes and chat a little bit about the work that you're doing in more detail. But it really is remarkable to hear your story, and I'm so excited to learn more. We're going to come back in a few minutes on An Hour to Give. Brain Canada is a fascinating organization, and if you haven't had an opportunity yet to sort of explore the work that they're doing, we think about all of the research that's been done on various things here in this country, but certainly Brain Canada is doing some innovative research, and we want you to follow that very closely. We're going to come back with Dr. Julia Fada in a few minutes, and she of course is from the Ottawa Hospital, which of course is doing incredible work as well. World-class research in our city, right here in Ottawa, and we're so happy to have Dr. Fada, of course, here on An Hour to Give. We'll be right back. Stay with us, everyone.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, I'm Paula Roy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back into my kitchen for another season of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. My approach to food is pretty straightforward. Fancy is fine, but when you're in a time crunch or have a really hungry and patient family to feed, I say simple recipes made with wholesome ingredients that you probably have on hand are the best. And that's exactly what you'll find on Paula Roy's Favorite Foods on Rogers TV.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Watch Podium exclusively on Rogers TV.
This is a perfectly healthy child. What's unhealthy are birth alerts, a racist practice that may stop this Indigenous mother from going home with her newborn. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Thank you so much for joining us here on An Hour to Give. I'm Sam Laprade. Today is all about our brains. And of course, we're talking to the one and only Dr. Julia Fata today from the Ottawa Hospital. Brain Canada has funded your research, and boy, have they picked the right person, a future leader so passionate about the work with MS patients. Talk to me a little bit about the research in detail. I want to learn more.
Yes. So I mentioned before that we came a long way in treating multiple sclerosis, and we have become very, very good in preventing these attacks of new symptoms. However, now that we're controlling this more evident part of the disease, it becomes more apparent that some patients, after the first 10 years where they were experiencing relapses, they tend to experience a progression of their symptoms over time, a gradual progression that we are not really able to stop. And the reason why we're not able to stop efficiently is because we don't really know what's causing it. And it seems like the therapies we have for now, we thought were excellent, but are not really effective in stopping this process. So my research really focused on this component of brain damage, this gradual progression of symptoms and disability that seems to go relentless at this point. One of the hints we had in recent years is that there seems to be part of the damage of the brain in MS seems to happen close to the surface, close to where the brain is exposed to a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid that surrounds the brain and the spinal cord. And there is a gradient of damage, more severe close to the fluid and less when you move inside the brain. So we really think there might be something in that fluid that is contributing to the damage. It's hard to measure this damage. We need very advanced MRI techniques to find it in a person. And so what we're doing with our research is acquiring these research quality MRIs to get a good picture of the brain and to find this pattern of damage. And then we're also taking samples of this fluid, and we're trying to assess whether molecules in this fluid are associated with that pattern of damage. We don't get this fluid just for research because it's a little bit an invasive procedure, but it's part of the diagnostic workup for MS. When a people is investigated for a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, they often get a collection of this fluid. So we take a little bit of the residual volume and we analyze for the content together with the MRI. We really hope to find new targets for new therapies that will target specifically this component of damage that we really don't know how to stop at the moment.
I could listen to you all day. That's fascinating to me. So you mentioned the island where you come from in Italy, a high number of people diagnosed with MS. How is Canada in relation to those numbers? Are there a number of people in this country, in this community, that are diagnosed with MS?
It's really, really high in Canada too. What differs between where I'm from in that island and Canada is that all around the world, MS seems to be more prevalent, more frequent in regions that are far away from the equator, when there is less sun exposure. And so Canada really fits in that area and is sort of expected to have this high prevalence, and it does have it. Sardinia, on the other hand, is a sunny, small island close to the equator. We don't know what's causing MS there. And we also think that trying to understand what's causing MS there might help us understanding what causes MS overall. But Sardinia is a small island, has a high prevalence, but little people. Canada is very large. And so the number of people affected by MS in Canada is extremely high. And the fact of being affected by this disease that causes long-term disability while in your 20s and 30s really impacts the way they plan for their life, the way they might succeed in their job. The fact that we have good therapies now to change the trajectory of this disease really changed the way these people handle the diagnosis.
Wow, it's fascinating to me. And talk to me a little bit about the fact that Brain Canada came in with some crucial funds for you in 2023. You received this wonderful grant, which of course is great. What's the expectation? Is this a grant that will fund you for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? What's the expectation there?
Yeah, so we'll fund me for 2 years, which is just the time to acquire the MRI and the samples and to analyze and to try to generate new results that hopefully will help me to applying for other bigger grants, right? So it's always a chain in research. There might be a little bit of delays, like personal delays.
Right. The baby on the way.
Yeah,
yes.
There's a baby on the way, so I might have to take a pause. But also on that, Brain Canada was very accommodating because I explained the situation and they say, no problem, we can pause and then you can resume when you're available. So, and you plan your research in the way that you think is more efficient, but then there are always unexpected things, right? And one of the things that it was in my project is that we want to have MS, multiple sclerosis, as the main disease, but also some more rare condition that we can study with the same protocol and we can learn more about. At the same time, they might also inform what's different between these other conditions where the immune system attacks the brain, but they don't have the same progressive damage of MS. And recruiting this patient has been really hard, so we might need a little bit more time. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a patient when you're, maybe you're tired, it's Monday morning, you've got a week ahead of you, you're lying in bed and you're thinking, oh, it's a big week ahead of me. Is there a patient that pops into your mind and you think, this is why I'm getting out of bed, this is why I'm going to do this research?
There are two kinds of patients that I always think about. And one are the ones that were diagnosed right now with the current knowledge that we have, but in other regions of the world where they didn't have access to the therapies we have. And they're really a reminder of how much we can do for these patients, how much research has done. And I still follow these patients, and it's actually heartbreaking to know how much better they could have done if they just had access to the therapies we have right now. And the other patients are the ones that come to me with just the progressive phase of the disease, and they're asking me for help. And I don't have much to offer. And what I tell them is that research is so active at the moment, and hopefully new things are coming, new things are on the way. And I do believe it's the case.
Oh, I do believe it too, because I just think, like, if someone is believing in this level of research for you, it just allows you to keep going, right? I mean, it's very exciting to see that kind of research happening and happening in our city. I mean, when you think about it, we're just 1 million people. It really is remarkable to have this kind of opportunity here.
It's true, but one interesting thing of the Ottawa hospital is that it has patients coming from a very large area. They come from up north, they travel all the way here. And so it actually has a very diverse population coming to it. Also people with different backgrounds. So it's true, it's a small city, but has a lot to offer to a large community.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and it's so wonderful to be able to have this opportunity. What do you think about in 10 years from now? Where do you think your research will be in 10 years from now? Whether you get, you had this Future Leaders Grant from Brain Canada and hopefully more grants to come. Where do you think it's going to take you in a decade if we're chatting in 2035?
We're dreaming now.
Yeah,
right?
we're dreaming. Let's dream.
In 10 years from now, I hope we're going to have good understanding of what's driving this component of damage in MS, in multiple sclerosis, and we're going to have good therapies to stop or even prevent this component of damage. And maybe we will be focusing on something else, maybe preventing MS overall. Try to understand the initial causes so that you don't have MS at all. And there's actually new research coming on that front, and hopefully there's going to be the new avenue. And then if you ask me where I'm going to be in 50 years, I'm going to be unemployed, but there's not going to be multiple sclerosis anymore.
No, there's a dream, eh? Yeah, but that's a good dream. Yeah, I totally understand that. And your team, tell me about your team.
Well, it's a small team that is growing. I was fortunate because I joined a very active and collaborative MS team on the multiple sclerosis clinic. They're both very experienced researchers and new researchers like me. They contribute from multiple aspects in the disease. And then I have my lab where I have a couple of students. They're just starting, and it's always refreshing to see the enthusiasm of a person just approaching research and how eager they are to learn more and to make their own impact into the field. And then I'm also fortunate to work very closely to other researchers that come from different fields, not multiple sclerosis, but neurodegenerative diseases or basic science. So they work on animal models of disorders. And I think that this interaction really inform and help research to explore new areas because they bring new perspectives from the way you used to think. So really help to think outside the box. Plus, many of them are very experienced and they give very good advice.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yes.
Which is awesome. So take me back to when you're maybe 10, 12 years old and you're a little girl and you're dreaming about your future. And if I was to tell you at 10 or 12 that you would receive a grant from Brain Canada, that you would be here in Canada, that you would be doing research that affects not only many, many Canadians, but so many people from your home island, what would you have said?
I wouldn't have believed you. It's so unbelievable. And sometimes I tell myself, you know, at the end of a very long day, when you are so tired and you think, I'm not even sure I can make it, and then I remind myself, I'm actually having what I dreamed for so long. I dreamed for so long to be here that I just need to be grateful.
Is it emotional?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it, and I think part of it for me is just to see somebody that wants to dedicate their life and their work to really making life easier for someone else. I have somebody in my life that has MS, and I see the struggle, and so it just gives me hope. That's another word we could add. We had believe, trust, and hope.
Hope should always be there.
Hope should always be. Let's make that one first.
Okay, I agree.
So do you have hope?
I do. I really saw the progresses, and I do think things are going to change for better in the near future. So I do have hope. Sometimes researchers at this specific moment in history are getting a little bit discouraged. I was getting to the point how hard it is to get funded. But you know, history has up and downs, and I know we're going to come up again.
And those students that you have, that you're working in your lab with you, how do you inspire them to keep working on this incredible grant, and you know that you've got, you know, this impactful research?
I honestly don't even know. We just talk, and then they come back so excited, and they found another thing, and they ask me to join me in the clinic. So sometimes when I'm seeing patients, they come and join, and that's also where they get their motivation, right? They see the needs, they see the progresses, and they are just keen to go back and do their research and contribute to this.
It's amazing. Yeah. And what's it like to be a researcher and have the opportunity to have a grant like this and know that this is really a building block for future grant opportunities? To get that first one, was that the big win for you?
It was an amazing win at that point. We have a saying in Italy, you wanted the bicycle and now you need to pedal.
I love that. I love that.
So yes, I have a lot of pedaling to do now, and
for sure.
I also I feel the pressure that I need to give back for what I receive, right? I need to produce, I need to make sure that people who put their hope in me and their trust are going to feel rewarded from the work I did.
There you did. Hope and trust again. There they are.
There they are.
Doctor, it's been so a pleasure to spend time with you today. Thank you
Likewise.
so much.
Thanks for having me
today. Of course, Dr. Julia Fata joining us today, talking about her incredible research and about Brain Canada. But we're not done here on An Hour to Give. Come on back, everyone. I'm Sam Laprade. We're going to introduce you to a new doc. Stay with us.
Welcome to Community News and Events on Rogers TV, Channel 22. I'm Josh Rackless. Evening in the Maritimes is Ottawa's premier East Coast kitchen party. This event brings together hundreds of high-profile guests, and you can be part of the fun too. Expect a delicious meal with lobster, beef, and vegan options, live East Coast music, great networking, and exciting auction items, all in support of Able 2. For 28 years, the funds raised at Evening in the Maritimes have helped provide resources for people with disabilities in Ottawa, empowering them to build lives filled with meaning and joy. This year's event takes place on May 29th at the West in Ottawa. Tickets are on sale now at able2.org, but hurry, sales close on May 12th and they're selling fast. To have your community news or event listed on our website, head to rogerstv.com, click on events, and post your event.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting Sober Driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. From coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
And we're back on An Hour to Give. We're talking all about Brain Canada today. And I'm so excited to welcome to the show Dr. James Downer. Hello, doctor. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
2 doctors in the house today.
Yeah, paradox.
I'm a very lucky gal. I'm a very lucky gal to get a chance to spend time with you today. Tell me what your role is with one of my favorite places, of course, Briere.
Well, I'm very fortunate to work at Briere here in Ottawa. I came here 6 years ago. I'm a palliative care physician at Briere, and I'm the head of the Division of Palliative Care at the University of Ottawa. And I do some of my research out of Briere Health Research Institute.
It's amazing. And palliative care, I want to take some myths out of palliative care, because I think there's a lot of people that think it's about dying. Mm-hmm. And I've always been told, and I believe strongly, that it's really about living. So tell me a little bit about palliative care.
Yeah, so palliative care has perhaps a shorter history in medicine than some of the other fields that people would know in medicine. We are a field that is focused primarily on caring for people with serious, advanced, and often incurable conditions. And our major focus is on symptom management, symptom control, but also on supporting patients through difficult decisions, supporting families through some of the stress that comes from being a family member of somebody who's dying. And that support ideally continues all the way through the trajectory of illness to death and into bereavement as well. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're known for. I think most people would be familiar with palliative care probably in the context of somebody who was at or near the end of life, a friend or a relative, for example. But palliative care is not just for people who are at that point in their illness. Palliative care can be integrated quite early on in management of disease. There are many types of conditions that are where people have quite a lot of symptoms, quite a lot of suffering, even at the moment of their diagnosis. And so we can get heavily involved at certain times and can obviously remain involved for a very long period of time.
Mm-hmm. And your connection to Brain Canada, this is my favorite part of being able to sort of share the connections. You do this incredible work. Today we're talking all about Brain Canada. Make the match for me. How are you connected?
So again, it's a really wonderful story. So palliative care is, as I say, a fairly one of the newer fields. It's perhaps one of the smaller fields. And it's a field of medicine where, you know, we have definitely made great strides. I think people, where palliative care used to be, there used to be a bit of a stigma around palliative care, certainly in Canada and other parts of the world. But I think people have come to understand the importance of high quality end-of-life care and certainly symptomatic management. And I think people have used to associate us with death. They don't do that anymore. You know, the myths are being more and more dispelled. And I think people are a lot more accepting of palliative care than they used to be. And as we are more involved in the management of suffering, some of our limitations become more apparent, that we have tools that are good for certain things, but for other types of suffering, our tools are less effective. And so palliative care research, the ability to identify newer techniques, newer tools, newer ways of managing suffering, we really have a bit of catching up to do. So you look at certain fields like cancer, where there have been some important breakthroughs, heart failure, other fields of medicine. We haven't quite had those breakthroughs yet, and so part of the steps that are required to get there is to start to build the research infrastructure needed to conduct high quality research so that we can help identify and evaluate promising new therapies for helping to control suffering better in people with advanced illness. So we applied for, and we're very fortunate, we won a very large grant partly funded by Brain Canada and by the Canadian Cancer Society to help build what we call a research platform. So this is a number of sites, 10 sites across the country, led out of Briere here in Ottawa. And the idea would be that we would all be working together, these 10 sites across the country, trying to identify individuals who have the types of suffering that we have, for example, promising new therapies for, and try to enroll them in a trial, and try to enroll them in this platform where we conduct multiple trials. We can try to do research much more efficiently so that hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years we will identify some real game-changing therapies, some game-changing options for people with the types of suffering that we currently struggle to manage.
And I love that it's called the Breakthrough Grant, because you're making obviously big strides. And you're doing incredible work. Were you surprised to get the grant, or were you sort of thinking it was coming your way?
Yeah, I think that you have to understand that we really believe in ourselves as a group, our community. We have a lot of very strong researchers at our center and strong researchers with whom we collaborate at other centers. We don't think we take second place to anybody in terms of the kind of research that we can put together and deliver on. That said, there are some very much more established and experienced groups out there, and so to be the awardees, I think, was a unique honor, a real privilege, but also for us, I think a heavy responsibility that we feel a strong need that now that they've put their trust in us, that we have to reward that trust, and we need to deliver on what we've promised.
What's your path? Talk to me about how this all started for you. Like, go back in time for me.
Wow, it's a great question. So I didn't really know a lot about palliative care before I went to medical school, and I think when I applied and when I was accepted, they had a mentorship program, and they asked you, it's any type of physician you want to be partnered with as a mentor, and any you don't. And if I'm not mistaken, I wrote 2 things. I don't want to do palliative care, and don't put me with a psychiatrist. Sure enough, here I am doing palliative care, and they put me with a psychiatrist. So, just life is what happens when you make plans, right? I think that many people go into medicine with the sort of you want to be Superman, you want to go and save lives and fight crime, and then when you get into medicine, there are obviously opportunities to do that, but they're not as common perhaps as you might have thought from watching television. What becomes more apparent over time is that you're very often managing disease and trying to improve quality of life for people, and that's an important goal. It's not less important than saving lives in any way, because we don't cure many conditions, we manage them, we keep them under control, and people go on and live their lives, and that's really important. When people get to a certain point, they often are much more interested in quality of life than in quantity of life. They're nowhere near as interested in incremental benefits and taking an extra pill as they are in spending less time at the hospital and more time with family doing things that they enjoy. And then when I happen to be around some very strong palliative care consultants, and when I had a chance to see them in action and go and do some family meetings, and then you see the incredible relief and gratitude on the faces of the patients and their family members when everyone comes to a shared agreement that we're in a situation where we probably can't change the outcome in terms of whether this person will survive or how long they'll survive, I should say, but you can make a huge difference in how well they can spend their time. And that is just it's an incredible experience to be part of interactions like that, and to be able to provide people with relief of suffering that might have been going on for some time. At that point, it was a pretty easy choice for me. I was doing intensive care, but I then decided to do additional training in palliative care, and here I am, involved heavily in palliative care. Obviously, it's an exciting moment to be in palliative care. Canada is really, I think, really leading the way in terms of growth in funding, growth in funding for both research, but also clinical care. I think Canadians are much more aware of the importance of high-quality end-of-life care than at any point in history. And so it's really quite an exciting time to be involved in this.
Do you live differently because you work in palliative care?
That is an excellent question. I don't know, because I've worked in palliative care for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that you approach illness and certain types of life choices perhaps differently based on your experience. I think that obviously for all, you see a lot of people who are in some really truly horrible situations, because of illness, because of their circumstances. And, on the one hand, you think to yourself, I really hope that never happens to me or anyone that I care about. But you want to help them anyway, because, you realize that, of course, it could be someone who's very close to you. You want to treat everyone, like they're a close loved one, somebody that you respect. And at the same time, you recognize that there are times when things happen to people that you couldn't necessarily predict and couldn't necessarily do anything about prior to it, and then it's just making the best of the time that you have. And I think that's an important recognition for all of us, that we are mortal, that we are going to meet our end at some point, and how we meet it is not a trivial matter. So having the option of choices around what kind of care you want to get, or where you want to get that care, the importance of knowing that there is something there to support you, regardless of what the kind of choices that you make, I find those very reassuring. It doesn't fill me with any particular dread. I feel very comforted knowing what's in front of me, and also that having been a part of this, you also think to yourself, I also have an awareness of where the gaps are in what we need to still do. So what kinds of treatments do we still need to develop? What kind of suffering do we still need better tools for? And that's what drives a lot of my research, which is really trying to look at closing those gaps that have existed for a long time that we just maybe haven't really been able to get on top of.
Fascinating. We have another time to chat with you. We're going to come back after a short break. We only have about 30 seconds, but what does your family think about the work you do?
Well, I to my face, they tell me they're quite proud of me. I'd like to think that they are. I'm in a medical family. Many of my relatives are physicians or nurses, and so I think this is we're maybe the black sheep for being in palliative care as opposed to another field, but I don't think that's true. I think they're very proud, and they've certainly seen me get involved in the care of people that they know, and being able to participate in those conversations. I think it's one of those things where you maybe you understand it in principle, and then when you see it happen to somebody close to you, then you really understand it.
Beautifully said. We're going to come back in a minute because we have more to talk about today, of course, with Dr. James Downer. We're going to talk all about Brain Canada when we come back on An Hour to Give.
Welcome to Community News and Events on Rogers TV, Channel 22. I'm Ramon DeFranco. The Ottawa Children's Festival is celebrating its 40th year and runs from May 8th to 13th in Lansdowne Park and the Horticulture Building. It promises an unforgettable experience for kids and families. This year's lineup includes engaging shows from Canadian and international artists from the Netherlands, Ireland, South Korea, and Denmark. Another highlight will be a live-action play of the classic children's book Where the Wild Things Are. The festival features hands-on workshops, storytelling sessions, and plenty of outdoor fun. Don't miss this beloved spring tradition that brings joy, laughter, and imagination to the heart of Ottawa. Check out Ottawa's childrensfestival.ca for full show details and tickets. To have your community news or events listed on our website, please go to rogerstv.com, click on events, and post your event. That's it.
Hello, I'm Liz Dowdswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. In 2008, carbon monoxide, a deadly invisible gas, killed an entire family in our province. That tragedy led to a new law requiring homes with potential CO sources to have alarms. John Gignac's family members passed away that day, and he shares his story to save others.
Please make sure you have working CO alarms in your home. Protect your family today.
Hi, I'm Meg, and this is Fit Finley. Join me for Season 3 of Fit Over 50 with Meg, exclusively on Rogers TV. You're going to love the workouts that I lead you through. We're going to be using resistance bands, weights, your own body weight, and a chair. These workouts are for people over the age of 50, but no matter what age you are, you're going to love them. Can't wait to see you then.
And we're back on An Hour to Give. Today is all about Brain Canada. We're learning so much today from Dr. James Downer. And I think about all of the work that you're doing, and I can't help but ask, is there a patient or two that kind of comes to your mind when you think about the research, and particularly the research that you're doing with the funding from Brain Canada?
Well, yes, and again, I can hopefully link all of those themes together in one person that stands out. One of the areas that we struggle to manage a type of suffering is what one might call a psychological or existential type of distress. So sometimes when people are given the diagnosis of an incurable illness, or when that illness really starts to take away from them the ability to do the things that they enjoy in life, that produces a tremendous amount of distress. This is not the type of distress for which we have very effective therapies. We have certain options that work in some cases, but sometimes the effect is small and doesn't last for a very long time. Most people would rate this as probably the most significant type of distress that they experience with advanced illness, and it is the #1 reason that people request medical assistance in dying in Canada. So we're working on trying to develop other options, other therapies that might be effective. So many people will have heard of microdose psilocybin, these psychedelic medications. It's something that has garnered a lot of attention. We're looking at it in small doses taken frequently, not enough to produce hallucinations and other types of effects. But there's been a lot of anecdotal reports that works very, very well for that type of distress. So we had an individual recently who was somebody with a very advanced, what we call a neurodegenerative disease. So a condition, I won't get into the details, but where they really lost the use of pretty much all of their limbs. They weren't able to eat, they weren't able to speak, they were dependent on a mechanical ventilator to breathe, and were essentially only able to communicate through facial expressions, but also by moving their eyes. So they're able to look at a letter board, an electronic board that tracks their eye movements, and they can spell words, and so the computer will talk. This individual was actually, I have to say, quite slick with it. He could carry on quite the conversation through his eye motion, his letterboard, and but of course, because of his condition, he had really a strong will and obviously to persevere through all of this. But it was starting, I think, to get the better of him. He was really having a lot of distress. We have a trial going on. He was able to take some medication. And again, it's an experiment, sort of a world first study being done here in Ottawa. And he had an incredible response to this. It was, in some ways, I think some people would, you would look at this person's condition, and it would feel, for some people, distressing, I think, to look at what this individual was living on a day-to-day basis. But he was really coping quite well, I think, for a long time, but starting to struggle. When we started this investigational medication, he just had a really, really good response. And he just, really told us in great detail about how it sort of turned his life around, turned around his perspective on his illness. And, it was, I have to say, on a selfish level, it was quite a joy to go see him every day because, it was just an uplifting experience every day to see this, how much better he felt. And, how he was, he always had the radio playing and had quite a cool playlist. I have to say, it was just a really good playlist. I was quite jealous, and he was very good at controlling it. And he has all these cool posters in his room and things. It's just a wonderful example of what I think some of the potential is around here. And this is one of the things we're going to be investigating in the Brain Canada and Canadian Cancer Society grant, the breakthrough grant that we've been awarded. We're trying to study this on a larger basis to really see how large the effect is. Are there people in whom it's very effective? And obviously, if we're able to get regulatory approval, if this medication is effective, to be using it routinely for everybody. That's really what it's about. The purpose is not to write clever papers or get grants, but to turn this into meaningful benefits for people that you can see. And when all the work is said and done, that's what this has to be about.
Because sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, you can do a research project, but you're not seeing impact for a decade. It seems like you're seeing impact almost immediately, and you can see the trajectory. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into an overnight success. We have to be honest about that. But, for example, you look at the cancer breakthroughs that we're having now. There's a lot of newer treatments that are showing some remarkably good results for certain types of cancer. But the groundwork for that was laid decades ago, before you get to a clinical trial and, of course, to widespread use. We're hoping that this will be an opportunity to accelerate that process. Again, finding promising therapies is one thing, and getting them, ready for trial and use in people is another. And then conducting those trials. And that's one of the reasons we need this platform, is because it's actually very hard to do research in a palliative setting. It's not hard. It's not always easy to find individuals who are willing to be part of a study. There's sometimes a very narrow window to identify people and offer them a participation in a study. Often people are very eager to do it, but eventually their illness might take away their energy, their time, and time is one thing they have very little of. So if the fact that they're volunteering some of that to give to research, and possibly for a study that won't even benefit them, that's very humbling. That's something that you have to take that responsibility very seriously, and use that time well.
The currency of time. Yeah. My father passed away in 2016. And to see him go through palliative care, and to see just the care that surrounds anybody that's experiencing that in their life. I think unless you've gone through it or you see someone that's gone through it, I don't think people really understand what it's like.
And maybe that's a good thing. I think that it's good that most people aren't preoccupied by death and end-of-life care. I really hope. I don't even spend most of my day thinking about it. I try to live in the moment and live for other fun things that I do. I think it's important to know that there's something there when the time comes, and options there when the time comes. And I would say we in Ottawa, but we in Canada, actually I think our palliative care services are excellent. I think we do a really, really good job on the whole. Obviously not everybody, but when we are engaged and when we're able to deploy the teams that we have, the experts that we have, and of course the support, because a lot of it isn't about cutting edge investigational medications or techniques. Some of it's fairly basic, but the basic stuff is the important stuff. And getting it right, making sure people feel that they have that support, that families can draw on, home visiting teams and nurses, or if you're in the hospital, that someone's going to come and look at you and check on things. That when the treatment for your disease might be done, but the treatment isn't done. We're still there for you.
And is that the tie-in to the mental health piece?
So yeah, I mean, I think the mental health piece and the existential distress that people feel around advanced illness is, I think, we've always known it was there, but I think that many people are becoming much more aware of what a big deal it is. And so our focus, and again, our understanding of this with more advanced technologies, MRIs, newer medications, and that sort of thing, I think we have a much better understanding for how the brain works when you are experiencing that kind of distress. The networks in the brain that are active when people are sort of ruminating on difficult moments and having trouble getting over negative thoughts that pull them down and take away their energy and make it really hard to appreciate what joys they have in life. Being able to turn that around, and how can we skillfully disrupt that process? How do we, and sometimes it's a matter of you can learn techniques to try to help control your thoughts. Those are sometimes effective, sometimes not effective, but can be helped very much by other techniques that we will be trying. So in our study, in our grant that we're using two newer technologies. One's called repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, and the other is called psilocybin. But they're both aimed at trying to help people who are maybe stuck in that rumination, stuck in that distress, to help jolt them out of it a little bit, and they can retain their ability not to ruminate, that they can focus their thoughts on more positive things and maybe enjoy some of their time. And does that have a knock-on effect in terms of how well their pain might be controlled and how well their other physical symptoms might be controlled? And in turn, does the improvement in those things help improve the distress felt by caregivers? Because obviously the distress in caregivers, I think, would come as no surprise to anybody, is very closely linked to the distress felt by the patient. So the better we do with the patient, the better we do with the caregiver. The better we do with the caregiver, hopefully the better we do with the patient. So these are all things that sometimes you can get a couple of things right and it starts to snowball.
No, that cyclical piece you just spoke about is so true, and having gone through it, I used to go into, my father was at home during his palliative time, and I used to go in my old bedroom, my childhood bedroom, and scream into a pillow. So that was my treatment at the time, but just not knowing any different, it was just like so sad and so impactful for our family. I have learned so much from you, and we used the words hope and believe and trust a little bit earlier with Dr. Fada, and I think they apply to you as well. It's that hope that things are going to change for the better, the belief in you getting through this incredible grant through Brain Canada and the Canadian Cancer Foundation, and of course this opportunity for you to trust your patients and for them to trust you. Yeah, it's wonderful. We only have about 30 seconds left. What would you say to those that have supplied this grant to you?
Just nothing but gratitude. I think putting this amount of investment, it might be the largest grant that Palliative Care has ever received in this country. We take that responsibility, very seriously. We hope to reward that with some real breakthroughs, some real game-changing treatments for people affected by the conditions that Brain Canada is interested in, that by Canadian Cancer Society is interested in, and we're hoping to change the game for everybody who has advanced illness.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Downer, and thank you so much for spending time with us here on An Hour to Give. Thank you to Brain Canada. We loved learning all about our brains today. Thank you so much for joining us. So good.
connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com. Are you a content creator looking to expand your audience and make your voice heard in your community? Rogers TV wants to provide you with a platform to share your hobbies, interests, and stories for free. Visit us to find out more.
Was that 4 or 5? He's lost count and still thinks he can drive. Do you think he knows that when he is caught and charged with impaired driving, he'll lose his license and a lot more? If he gets in his car, he'll face costs exceeding $20,000. Does he realize he could have a criminal record for his choice to drive? And it could be much worse if he crashes. I wonder what he'll be thinking tomorrow.